Welcome back to another episode on the podcast. This week, I'm talking to Robin Nielsen, who is a board-certified integrative nutritionist who has been specializing in women's health and hormone balance for the past 20 years. She empowers women to become the CEO of their health so they can feel vibrant, confident, and sexy at any age. And you can tell just by speaking to Robin how she feels in her body. And this has been a huge focus for me recently and something I'm diving more into. I just put out a call for more guests on the podcast that specialize in health, in body, because being a Taurus, this has always been so important to me. I've always been very aware of my body. I have, especially recently, really been paying even more attention to it because we are spiritual beings having a physical experience, right? We're in a human body for a reason. And to separate the body from the spirit is doing the entire experience a disservice. And I think it's so important to come inside and feel our body, nourish ourselves properly. I was sitting and journaling this morning, and what came through so strongly, because I've been in so much more conversation with God, universe, source, spirit, whichever term you prefer, and just having a conversation just every day in every situation, aligning myself better and feeling better has always been a priority to me. But anyway, so I was sitting there this morning journaling, and what came through was around food. So I have been primarily plant-based for the past 15 years. And of course, nowadays, being plant-based, I mean, it never has meant that you are healthy because there's so many alternatives. There's still processed food. But what came through really strongly was that the food so many of us are consuming right now is specifically designed to keep us heavy and dense energetically. It's added, they add so many flavors and sugars and we get this dopamine hit that keeps us coming back for it. And when we talk about food, I'm reading a book I think it's called When Love is Food, but it talks about how we emotionally attach to food. So when we feel out of control in certain areas of our life, we can feel in control in a sense with our food, or vice versa, right? Well, we feel out of control with our food and overeat or consume, or we're constantly having the sugar hits or constantly whatever it is, then it's like when we can be out of control in one area, we can be in control in another area. And so our relationship to our food is a mirror for the relationship we have in a lot of other ways. I mean, everything is energetics, right? Everything is energy. And I think that so much more right now, we're all sensing that, whether we're conscious of it or not. It's just like social media, like growing a business. We're growing and doing things in a time where the old systems and structures are broken. They do not work anymore. And yet we're still not fully in this new way of doing things. So those of us doing things a little bit differently, it can feel sticky. It can feel like we're not quite doing it right. I think there's a lot of isolation just in the sense of that not everybody is quite doing it that way yet. And it's just like Aquarius, right? Aquarius is the outlier. It's the rebel. It's doing things differently that the collective doesn't quite understand yet, but we're catching on. And so again, everything is energetics right now. And if we want to elevate our consciousness, we're all on a specific path for a specific reason. And so whatever your calling is your calling, right? But I think that this conversation is so important to our evolutionary journey. As I'm recording this today, Pluto stations retrograde. And any planet in a retrograde motion internalizes the energy. And so Pluto is the soul itself, as said by Jeff Green. Pluto is a huge part of our evolutionary purpose and process. And so Pluto is retrograde for half the year, which means half of us were born with Pluto retrograde, half of us were born with Pluto direct. But when Pluto is retrograde, there's something transforming inside. We're beginning to question things. So if you're looking at it from an evolutionary perspective, half of us were born to question the status quo. Half of us were born to question what everybody says is normal. Half of us are individuated in that way. And there's nothing wrong with those of us who don't question. We all have our different purpose, and there's so much to your birth chart for your purpose and your evolution. But Pluto in itself is having us question what we don't normally question. Pluto in Aquarius is doing things differently. Systems are crumbling. That was Pluto in Capricorn. Pluto in Capricorn showed us all of the holes, all of the ways the system is failing us and the ways that the system does not work. Pluto in Aquarius is rebuilding in a way that supports the collective. I was listening to, not a podcast, but a astrologer talking about just the transits. But they were talking about how, so you might be familiar, over the weekend, Spirit, like literally overnight, just like shut down everything. And this astrologer was talking about how actually Spirit is now crowdfunding, I think is what they call it. So you can pledge X amount of money, whether it's $45, which is the average price of a ticket on Spirit Airlines, up to like, I think $2,500, which is the most. But the goal is that if we get enough people, just people, you, me, whoever, to fund Spirit Airlines, that they can reopen and they will be owned by the people. There will be no billionaire sitting pulling the strings. It will be owned by the people. And I was like, that is such a Pluto and Aquarius thing. We're giving the power, which is Pluto, power, control. We're giving the power to the people. So of course I ran and and pledged to be a part of that, because then, you know, whoever contributes owns the company, and you get a certain amount of votes, right, for however much you've pledged. But anyway, I just thought that that was such an Aquarian thing to do, and especially again now with, again, Pluto stationing retrograde today. So again, all of that being said, yes, we have this soul's purpose. We have this evolutionary purpose. We have this way of being in this path and this journey. And the body is so important. And the reason why I believe so many healers feel disease or illness in their body is because these healers are holding a certain amount of light, and the body, due to the food it's consuming, just because this is a 3D world, can't necessarily, it has to expand to be able to hold the amount of light that a lot of the souls right now are coming in with. And so that creates disease. I was reading a book and it was talking about one soul that came in, and the woman who was having this experience was depressed for her whole life. She didn't understand like why she felt so different, why she felt so isolated, and she did a regression, a past life regression, which turned into just like a soul. They connected with her soul, and basically she was like, this was basically like her first incarnation in the human body. And she was like, came from a plane of pure light and love. And the body, it in its 3D-ness, it can be challenging to hold that much light and love and energy. And she was born with a heart issue. And the lesson just as a newborn baby to those around her was just the power of prayer and the power of love. And through speaking to the subconscious and the soul, was able to understand that the prayer and the love of those around her helped heal that and stuff like that. So like it is possible. We get an energetic upgrade. I've been having so much conversations, again, like I said, with God, source, universe, spirit, of just like visualizing all of my cells just in bright white healing light, just feeling vibrant and energized and good in my body. And it just, when you walk with that awareness through your day, it helps you choose more nutritious foods. I'm trying to cook at home more and just really getting more strict on my rules when it comes to food. So 5 ingredients or less, everything that I can pronounce, no additives, no, like, you know, whatever. And just basically it being real food. Like I made banana bread last night and it was just like, there's nothing in it. And I don't feel bad with my kids eating it. And again, we all have our own path, but, so anyway, so yeah, I think that this, conversation is really important and really potent. And yes, we get into the science and the major 6 hormones, but we also get into affirmations. We also get into the soul. We also get into spirituality. We also get into energetics. So it's a really beautiful conversation, and I hope that you love it. You can connect with Robin. All the links will be down below. You can take her quiz, her hormone quiz that she shared, was so generous and shared with you. I'm trying to just find it here. Oh my gosh, where'd it go? Okay. So her complete hormone quiz. I took the quiz, and my results were low cortisol. There's 3 different parts. One was high cortisol, one was low, and then one was low progesterone. So those were the results that I got. And she gives you videos and explains it. It's really beautiful. So again, if you're feeling tired and wired, tired but wired, if you're struggling with low energy, mood swings, stubborn weight, it's really time to take charge of your health. So you can take her complete hormone quiz to discover your level of hormone imbalance across the 6 key hormones that she addresses. So you can better understand how your body is functioning and identify clear steps towards healing. And so all of that is available in the show notes. Just click the buttons and find your way to Robin. You can connect with me on Instagram, on TikTok, on Substack, on YouTube. It's all at Rochelle Christiane, ROCHELLE.CHRISTIANE. Astro Design Collective is available as well. It is $10 a month. You can join. I'm doing daily, weekly astrology transits, human design information. We're doing embodiment challenges. So right now we're going through the moon phases, and then we're going to start the gene keys afterwards because I'm really feeling into the Venus sequence lately. So we're going to be starting that. So basically it's just update every single day. I'm launching a new offering. It will be a reading. So you can either get just your PDF blueprints, you can do a pre-recorded or a completely live, really deep dive. It's going to be tiered. So I will have that available within the next week. So check back for that. Otherwise, I hope that you enjoy the episode. Share with a friend if you find it helpful. Rate, review, subscribe. On Spotify, it's just those 5 stars. You just have to click them or whatever you feel that it's worth. It really helps the podcast just to get out to more ears. So I thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you. Whether this is your first time listening, whether you've listened to 10 episodes or all of them, I am so grateful for each and every one of you. Welcome to the podcast. Today I have Robin Nielsen, who is a women's hormone expert, founder and CEO of Natural Hormone Solution. And I'm really excited to have this conversation because, I think a lot of the audience as well is in this phase where, aging is, I'm of the mind that we can, like you kind of said offline, we can feel good at any age. I feel better in my 30s than I did in my 20s. And I know it's, we have a misconception, I think, around, or maybe just doctors kind of slap diagnoses on us and there's little knowledge. And so I think this conversation is really important to educate and to understand how we can work with, our hormones and what they mean. So I would like to start with just, you sharing kind of like your story, right? Your backstory, anything pivotal that happened that sort of like got you to where you're at today, doing what you're doing. And then we can just dive in from there.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, I felt old when I was young. So, when I was in my late teens, I had acne on my face, my chest, and my back. And if you've ever experienced any sort of skin blemishes, you know how debilitating it can be. It's embarrassing, and you feel guilty that you don't know how to fix it, and you feel a lot of shame around it. And yeah, all very, very low vibrations, right? All these really horrible feelings that I took the credit for, right? I took credit for the acne, and today I wouldn't take credit for anything that was happening in my body. So that's one thing. We need to stop taking credit for what's going on and just figure out how to fix it. I also could gain 5 pounds in a day for no good reason. So I felt like my body had a mind of its own and it was just kind of doing its thing, and I was at its mercy, basically. It was at a time, I think, when, we felt like our brain and our bodies were two separate entities. Our head and our bodies were two separate entities. I'm like, my body's just gone rogue. And I was headed off to Yellowstone for the summer, and I had receding gums and receding enamel on my teeth. And so I was very sensitive to hot and cold foods. And so the dentist handed me a tube of Sensodyne toothpaste, which kind of numbs you out, and said, here you go, this should help. So I went off to Yellowstone to work for the summer using my Sensodyne toothpaste so that I could eat, basically. And then things just progressed from there. So I think it's really important for us to know that if you have 1 or 2 symptoms, they don't really get better unless you start really healing your body. You just get more symptoms. And the symptoms come based on your genetics, right? And kind of what you're exposed to. So we symptoms show up, and they're just a message that, our bodies are out of balance. So then going to my, early 20s, mid 20s, I started to get arthritic symptoms in my hands. We had horses and I would carry a bucket out to the barn and it would just drop out of my hand. I wasn't able, I didn't have the grip strength because I had very sore hands, very sore fingers. And I also started to get varicose veins behind my knees. And, if you've ever had varicose veins, they're painful, they're ugly. And, I was young and I thought that that was an older person's thing, but I didn't pay a lot of attention because that wasn't my biggest thing, right? I was really worried about what the outward world was seeing, which was my skin issues. I still had acne on my face, my chest, and my back, and I still could gain 5 pounds in a day for no good reason. So I was focused there. And I was trying to resolve that. And like most of us, we undereat and we overexercise to solve the weight problem. Like that's how we roll as women. So then as I moved into my early 30s, I still had all the same issues. I still had the acne, the weight gain, the varicose veins, the arthritic symptoms in my hands, but I had horrible digestive problems. I was constipated for years. I had no idea that that wasn't normal, right? My family didn't talk about bowel movements. Surprise, surprise. And so, yeah, so I, had a lot of cramping in my abdomen and I started to get kind of tired. I've been pushing through for a lot of years. I was ignoring my symptoms for the most part, and I was just trying to address my skin and the weight. And so I just kept getting more and more symptoms. I had horrible moods. I had, anxiety. I was depressed. I was grumpy. I was irritable. Turns out it wasn't my spouse. 2 weeks out of the month, it was me and, kind of what I was going through. So, terrible mood swings. And as I kind of hit my mid 30s, I crashed and burned. I have been really busy, and I remember driving home from work one day, and I had a meltdown. I started sobbing, and I felt like I wasn't doing a good job at anything. I had two boys, and I felt like I wasn't being a good mom. I wasn't, being a good spouse. I wasn't doing a good job at work. I was left work, on my desk when I left, which of course is common, but, wanted to get it done. I was an overachiever. So I vowed right then and there to figure my stuff out. And to age me a little bit, that was before Dr. Google. So I didn't know how I was going to figure it out. We had the Merck manual at home, but that wasn't very helpful for, natural solutions. And so I said yes to every opportunity that showed up after that pivotal moment in my life. And here I am today, helping women, feel fabulous no matter what their age, no matter what their circumstances, what their situation, because I healed everything.
Wow.
So once I went back to school, I trained under an endocrinologist. Literally, I said yes to everything that came my way. And ladies, when you choose, everything starts showing up to help you achieve that. It's just how energy works. And Rochelle's the perfect one to teach you this. And the including, so my skin completely, healed. I wouldn't have ever been able to wear, a scoop neck top like this. The I never had a weight issue anymore. I never had to diet, right? I didn't have to over exercise. My gums grew back. The enamel on my teeth grew back. I didn't have to use that crazy numbing toothpaste anymore. Varicose veins completely healed. I had a weird symptom. I had rough elbows.
Mm,
I don't know if you've ever experienced rough elbows.
yeah.
Really rough elbows. I thought it was a
Mhm.
lotion problem. Turns out it's not a lotion problem, it's an inside job.
Mm.
So, rough elbows healed. Arthritic symptoms in my hands completely went away. I wasn't tired anymore. I got my energy back. So, um, we as women, we experience a lot of symptoms, like hair loss and hirsutism, that dark, coarse hair growth. I don't know, you name it, we experience it. And, if I had gone to the doctor at some point, I would have been diagnosed with PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, because of the androgenic activity that I was experiencing with the acne. But, PCOS is like any other diagnosis, it's just a cluster of symptoms. And it can be different for every woman. And there are many, many drivers. So I'm very thankful that I didn't have a diagnosis because a lot of times I feel like a diagnosis keeps us stuck. It's the
Yeah.
reason why we can't heal. So I'm really grateful that I didn't have that diagnosis. But in hindsight, I could see, that that's kind of what was happening.
Yeah. Wow, there's so much of what you said that I so resonate to and what my own personal experience have been in just, I mean, like the acne, even up until this past year, I had what I just assumed was like hormonal acne around my period, and it started clearing up over the last like couple months. But yeah, being tired, I'm like, part of me is like, I just don't know if I'm a morning person because like, I have to wake up at 5:30 to get my kids to school, Monday through Friday. And I
Isn't
just
that something?
yeah. So I'm like, am I just not a morning person? That's why I'm like tired, or is it something more? But I also love that you brought in energy because I'm such a firm believer that, obviously every symptom that we have in our body is our body trying to tell us something, right? And we don't listen to it so often. Or, I think the path of like whether it's motherhood or being career driven, we tend to like prioritize those things instead of ourselves. We just kind of like push it to the side until it becomes an issue that we can't escape. And then, like you
Yeah.
said with the diagnoses, I think that I don't want to say I don't go to the doctor, but there are certain things where I have that mindset where I'm like, I don't want to get a diagnosis and then have that shift the way that I see things or like believe that that's like the end all be all.
Hmm.
And it's not to say not to go to the doctor. That's not what I'm saying. But I think that being conscious, right, that you're not attaching so strongly to these things that allows you to then, do the work to move past them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a diagnosis, if you have the right mindset, can help you with a path to
Mm-hmm.
wellness. But, most women don't get the diagnosis then. They get it, and that's the reason why they can't be well. So then we just stay
Yeah.
stuck. And so
Yeah.
we don't want to use a diagnosis as a reason why you can't be well. You want to use it as your kind of launching pad to figure it out.
Yeah.
And because there's so many different symptoms associated with something like polycystic ovarian syndrome, it's just a catch diagnosis. Like,
Yeah.
all right, well, she has PCOS. But it's very androgen driven, so that's a good indication. But yeah, I mean, when you pick a path and you start to heal, magic happens,
Yeah.
and all you have to do is choose, say yes to yourself instead of saying yes to everything and everyone else. Start here. You
Mm-hmm.
know, that's where we're not raised to choose
Yeah.
ourselves. We grow up as people pleasers, and we want to we want love. Everyone
Yeah.
wants to be loved, and the way, girls, teenagers, women receive love is by, being there for others. And we have a hormone estrogen that helps us a lot stay in that nurturing place until we get to perimenopause and then postmenopause when things really start shifting and testosterone becomes a bigger player postmenopause. And that's when you start to get your voice and start to have an opinion. And I want to use a cuss word here, but I don't know if that's appropriate.
Yeah, you can.
You don't give a flying fuck
Yeah.
about a lot of things, and you can feel into your body a lot faster, whether it's a hell yes or a no.
Mm.
And so you don't want to wait until then to make that shift. You want to start, tapping into your intuition a whole lot faster. And I know Rochelle's really good with helping you do just that and start choosing yourself more and start making better decisions for yourself because lo and behold, our head and our bodies are connected, and
Mm.
every single cell in your body experiences emotion. So whatever your brain is feeling, your whole body is feeling. And
Yeah.
that alone is a hormone deal breaker right there.
Yeah. So how much of it like this, it seems like a cycle or a process, like a natural process of like, youth and then coming into yourself, right? Like even just being 39, I care so much less about what people think that I did 10 years ago, right? When I was in my 20s or my teens, oh my gosh, like you said, I found that if I people pleased, I would be accepted more, but I was never happy because I just wasn't being authentic to
Right.
myself, right? So I think the older
Right.
that you get, so how much
Hmm.
of that is just like the process of aging and like you said, estrogen and then testosterone taking over, and how much of it is maybe just like conditioned, like society telling us like you have to act a certain way?
Well, I think it's both. I think it's if you better understand how your hormones work, you can work with them, instead of against them. We have to work with our hormones if we want to be balanced. And there are six hormones that are really important for us to pay attention to. And there's a great saying that is important to remember. Those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind.
Mm.
And if you can just remember that, remember to, row your boat, create your own trail. Because what you'll find is that, people are very fickle, and it doesn't matter how much you do for them. It's not really about that. Everybody's about their own needs in the end. And so, do what's right for you. I can give an example of, sort of a transition. No is a complete sentence.
Hmm.
It's really hard to get to that place where you can just say no or no thank you. It's not for me right now. But you can transition, by saying things like, let me think about it. Right. And of course, if you have to think about it, it's a hell no. But it gives you
Yeah.
that buffer to come up with another answer, which is eventually no. I was in Rotary International for a long time, for 9 years, and I was continually asked to be president, and I kept saying no. And because I'd been president of many associations, and I thought, I'm done with that. But I was asked to be on the board, so I served for a year because I loved the president, and I was so excited to get off the board. And then the new president coming in was a dear friend, and he asked me to be on his board. And I couldn't say no, right? There are times when you just don't feel like you can say no. So I said, yes, of course, I'll be on your board.
Mm.
And I went home and I was like, every cell in my body was like, no, 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 no. Like, what are you doing? So the next day I called Bob, Dr. Molthrop. He was my dentist. And I said, Bob, can I come over? He said, sure. And Bob was a crier, very emotional. So I went over to his house and I said, Bob, I said, I so want to support you. But I said, I just can't be on your board for a year. I just can't do it. Like every cell in my body says no. So we cried together and we hugged it out and I left. And within 24 hours, they had my position filled. So don't think that you're indispensable. I think
Mm.
that's where we get really caught up is that we think that we're indispensable. And I definitely had that mindset because I don't know about you, but I can do it better and more efficiently than anyone else.
Mm.
Do you feel that
Yeah.
way?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's, I don't know if you're familiar with like astrology, but in astrology, I'm a Leo rising, right? And Leo's very much like like, look at me kind of energy.
Yes.
And so sometimes I think that I'm like, I'm so unique. Like, why wouldn't you want like just me?
I know. Why wouldn't you want me? That's so
Right?
cute. That's yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so we have to get over ourselves, right? We
Yeah.
have to get over
Yeah.
ourselves, and we have to let other people sink or swim,
Yeah.
And so we do get to that point, and don't wait till menopause to feel into that. Start feeling
Mm.
into it right now. Like, what are those things that you really want to be spending your energy on? We only have so much energy, and Rochelle mentioned energy as a big part of being well, and it is. If you have great energy, everything's working so much better. Your hormones are so much more balanced. You won't have all the symptoms, that you might currently have. I'd love for you to take a moment right now and just write down like your top five. health symptoms that you're experiencing,
Mm.
because we have to name it so we can change it. You know,
Yeah.
like I said, I was just focused on the acne and the weight gain. But if I'd really thought about it, I'm like, well, crap, yeah, varicose veins, they are no picnic. Like receding, teeth and gums, or, no picnic, right? So, what are those things that you're experiencing that if they weren't there, life would be so much better?
Hmm.
And then we're naming it so you can change it. Awareness is key. So I really love that, and then stop taking credit for everything that's going on because it's not your fault.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that. A big part of my work with women is just kind of exploring your body so that you can
love
understand what a
that.
no and a yes actually feels like in your body. Because I feel like once you understand that, there are times when I say yes, when my body is saying no, but I feel like then I'm at least conscious of it, right? I'm
Yes,
not as
yes,
resistant, or I can come back, or I can say, let me think about it if I know it's a no, but I feel really uncomfortable saying it in the moment, right? It's an awareness of your
right.
system.
Yeah.
And
And we're not going to do everything that, or not everything is going to be a hell yes. I mean, there's some things that you just want to contribute. Maybe it's at your, child's school, or, maybe it's a project for someone else that you think is a really, worthy cause. I mean, maybe you can get yourself to a hell yes on that. But you have to start saying yes to yourself a whole lot more
mhm,
if you want to heal.
yeah.
Yeah.
I tell my kids all the time. So I have my oldest is a girl, and then my son is the younger one. But I tell them all the time, especially my daughter. I'm like, no is a complete sentence, because she was like, well, what if so and so gets angry at me? I said, that's not on you. That you have to put your foot down, right? And so, like, it was last week. I asked my son to do something, and he said no, and I said no. He goes, Mom, no is a complete sentence, and I was like, oh, you need to reword what I just asked you to do because
Yeah.
but I like that, and like I think that again, like having the recognition and just the being like, let me think about it in that pause and coming into yourself as
Yeah,
well.
it's a transition because it's
Yeah.
hard for us. It was really hard for me to say no. I was the yes girl.
Mm-hmm.
There's the whole adage, if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person, right? And I was definitely that, and I had been running on adrenaline for so many years. And it's sort of I'm kind of calling this the fireman or the EMT syndrome, where you're, on this adrenaline rush for years and years and years. And then you retire and your body breaks down because the adrenaline's not keeping you going anymore. And your body now has the capacity to heal. But pretty awful things show up when that adrenaline stops surging through your body. And you don't have to be a fire person or an EMT for this to be your way. Because when we're really tired, we need that adrenaline to get us going. So, I was up early with my kids. My husband and I ran a large company together. We get our coffee, we get our little pastry, we get into the office. I was go, go, go all day. And then, I was president of another organization. And then we would go home, and at nights and on weekends, we'd go do these horse events that were timed. And so we'd be racing around the arena, like it was crazy. But it was all adrenaline. And then, we'd be between events and I'd be sitting there exhausted, but I could wake up for our go in the arena
Mm-hmm.
because I was so burned out. So we have to stop running from one task to the next. And that is a symptom of hormone imbalance, by the way. So I did that for decades, running from one task to the next. So it's elevated cortisol, right? Your daytime hormone, which is, by the way, one of your major hormones. And she's the one that you want to pay attention to if you want good thyroid function, if you want to even make your sex hormones, progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. You can't even make your sex hormones if cortisol and adrenaline are constantly elevated because you can't run from the tiger and make babies,
Mm,
right? Physiology just doesn't work that way. All of
mm,
your resources have to go to saving your life instead of, making reproduction possible.
mhm.
That makes sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
You had mentioned six hormones. So we have cortisol, progesterone, estrogen, testosterone. What are the other two that we should look
Yeah,
for?
insulin. So
Insulin. Okay.
insulin is your other major hormone. So we have two major hormones, cortisol and insulin, which are super important to really learn about because when you get those two hormones in balance, then your mid hormone thyroid, right? Your thyroid produces a number of hormones, but thyroid is a compensatory gland. So it's going to function kind of at the rate of what your body can handle. It's responsible for metabolism, but it can't go too fast if your body's struggling. So it's going to slow down. I equate it to the hibernating bear. The hibernating bear is lacking resources. It's lacking sunlight and potentially water and food. And so, it stocks up when food is there and then it hibernates. But what that means is that the metabolism of the bear is so slow just to keep those, life-giving functions going, like breathing and heartbeat, right? There's no digestion happening. There's no making of any sex hormones. It's just surviving to make it through. So when, your metabolism slows way, way, way down, you're burning very few calories. And
Mm,
so that's what happens when we undereat. That's what happens when we overexercise. That's what happens when we're doing, right? Our metabolism sort of just starts to slow down. And then we wonder why the next diet doesn't work. And it's because your metabolism is the hibernating bear, right? We need to give it food, right? Proteins, fats, carbohydrates. We need to give it vitamins and minerals. We need to flood our body with resources. That's what I eventually discovered was that my body was really lacking essential resources to build up. So there's a concept called building versus using, right? Building versus using. So we're either building our bodies up, we're building bone, we're building our muscle, we're getting stronger, our liver's functioning well, we have good, happy brain chemistry, right? Or we're using, right? We're breaking down our bone, we're breaking down our muscle to feed ourselves, to go, go, go. Our brain chemistry is really depleted. So we're using way more than we're building. And we've got to get the building up higher than the using if we want to heal. And at
mm,
some point, maybe you can, use as much as you build, if you're still the go-go girl. But you've got to get that building, you've got to rebuild. And, when we think about like osteoporosis and osteopenia and, muscle wasting, that sarcopenia, right, which is where we have too much fat to muscle. It's really easy to get that way if we're doing intermittent fasting. If we're not getting enough rest, if we're, over exercising, all those things that we think are really healthy. I was at a yoga class a couple weeks ago and I really liked what the instructor said. He started the studio here in Santa Barbara. It's a pretty famous studio. And he said, all those things like are working on the outside, right? Those are working on the outside, work on the inside.
mm.
Work on the inside. I was diagnosed with osteopenia in my early 40s. I'm now 63. My mother, my grandmother both had hip replacements. In fact, I think my grandmother had more than one, two or three. And so that's in my, genetic profile. But today my bones are strong. So, you can reverse osteopenia, you can reverse osteoporosis. I know that this is a younger audience, but come on, like 41 diagnosed with osteopenia, like that's a thing,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah. Does that make sense, the building versus using?
Yeah, yeah, that definitely makes sense. And so when you had all of these symptoms, that, and I like that you said to write down your top 5 health symptoms because that really gives you clarity on it. But
Yeah.
so you had all of these symptoms and you got to this point where you're like, okay, I'm just going to say yes to everything. This was just like an energetic shift, right? Where you were just like being open to whatever the universe was going to bring
Well,
you.
I decided.
Okay.
So I didn't say I was going to say yes to everything. I chose to figure my stuff out. Like it was this
Okay.
pivotal moment where I said,
Mhm.
I'm going to figure my stuff out. Then all of these opportunities came, and
Got it.
that's when I said yes to them. Like you have to say
Yeah.
yes to healing yourself. But just know that if you don't say yes right now, another opportunity will come your way. So it's not this
Yeah.
frantic, we don't want to keep up the frantic pace, but it just
Mhm.
happened for me that I was so motivated to figure my stuff out that I said yes to what came my way.
Yeah.
But the
So you
yes comes after the deciding. Yeah.
Yeah. So you decided, and then these opportunities then came
Yeah.
to you. And so it was more like an energetic shift at first, and then you started to feel better from exploring these different things. And then like, so what are the more like, I guess, practical, like day-to-day things that really supported you?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I just want to say that when you choose you, when you decide that you're important and that you want to figure your stuff out, your genes already start expressing themselves for the better.
Mm,
So you've already made this shift so that your genes are already going to be more on board. It's kind of a crazy thing to think about.
yeah.
But just choose, just decide, I am sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. I choose me. Like, let's figure this out.
Yeah.
Let's just back up to the hormones now, because I said that cortisol and insulin are our major hormones.
Hmm.
Cortisol gets a bad rap. She gets called stress, but she's not, we use her that way, but that's not her main function. Her main function is helping us do our day, right? She is our energy hormone for our day. But when we abuse her, when we're too busy or we're stressed out, we're in a bad relationship, or we have some sort of infection going on that we don't know about and we don't address, or we're not managing our blood sugar or our insulin, then she elevates. And if she elevates because your brain thinks that there is a tiger, insulin comes right up along with her. Because insulin is the hormone that gets blood sugar from your bloodstream into your cells so that you can run.
Mm.
And these days, we're not running from a tiger for the most part. Most of us aren't, afraid that someone's going to kill us.
Mm.
But our brain doesn't know that losing our car keys is not running from the tiger, or being stuck in traffic, or late for an appointment, or, you know, um, any sort of issues that we have with our kids that's an urgent matter, right? That just feels like running from the tiger in your
Mhm.
body. So if your cortisol and insulin are always elevated, you become insulin resistant, which, by the way, has all the same symptoms as perimenopause and postmenopause. And you're not making your sex hormones because cortisol is elevated, and all of your, blood flow is going to your extremities and all those things that help save your life.
Mhm.
So when you learn that, then you start shifting how you respond to things. You start shifting your schedule, for instance. The to-do list is something that can really take us out. Don't have a to-do list. It's kind of a long story, but nothing on your to-do list is in your calendar. And so it's just one more thing. And if you really think about it, it drives you absolutely crazy because you
Yeah.
cross something off, but you add two more things on. And so it's all extra stuff that you never put in your calendar, but you still have to do. So,
Mhm.
come 10, 11 o'clock at night, you're still trying to get some things done on your to-do list. It just takes you out. Right. So when you think about what are those things that help me to balance cortisol and therefore balance insulin, it's things like when you eat, what you eat. If your blood sugar drops too low, that's a crisis. Right now, cortisol rises and insulin rises. So you can't let your blood sugar drop too low. You also can't let it get too high because that's a crisis. So you want to have your meal timing down. You want to start eating again. Breakfast, a high protein breakfast with an hour of waking and a healthy high protein breakfast, not the, protein laden coffee at Dunkin' Donuts,
Mhm.
right? But the really balanced, you're a nutritionist, you know what that looks like. A really balanced breakfast with an hour of waking, and then every 4 to 6 hours. So 3 meals a day. You want to eat more probably than you have been. Lots of vegetables, good healthy protein, some healthy fats in there, because they all have a purpose. And our body needs all the macros to function properly. You want to get good restorative sleep, a minimum of 8 hours a night. Like sleep is the magic elixir of healing.
Yeah.
We can't get good sleep if we don't balance our cortisol during the day. That's a big takeaway, ladies. So if you have a crazy day, you're going to have a crazy night. Cortisol is going to keep waking you up. If you have a flowing day, you're going to have a flowing night. So
Mm.
you want to think, how can I make my day flow? Like that is a game changer. And then you get 8 hours of sleep a night. There is a huge difference between 7 hours and 8 hours. Many studies on 7 hours actually shortening your lifespan.
Wow.
And many of us think seven is enough. There was a huge study on 8 hours of sleep versus less than 8 hours of sleep. There's a great book, Why We Sleep. It doesn't tell you how to get good sleep. It just tells you why we sleep. Why do we
Yeah.
have to sleep? Why do we sleep?
Yeah.
Especially for those of us who like to, GSD, get stuff done. Yeah, so that's a basic thing, right? And getting good sleep and changing your thoughts around exercise. So are you exercising to support the inside of your body, or are you exercising for the outside, for
Mhm.
what it looks like? And how is it a nourishing exercise for you? A lot of us have been told that you have to be at the gym for 2 hours if you want to see results, right? If you want to lose weight or if you want to build muscle or whatever it is. And if you're tired, you're just using energy for that you don't have.
Mm.
So there's a little expression, don't overextend your chi, right? So exercise for where you are right now. If you're really tired, just go walking for 15 minutes because
Mhm.
then, you'll pull yourself out of the hibernating bear mode. The whole
Yeah.
thing is we got to get our metabolism working so that we have some energy. So if you don't have good energy, don't use it up exercising.
Mhm.
I mean, aren't there more fun things that you want to do?
Yeah.
I can think of a lot.
Yeah.
Have fun in your life. Like go laugh. Like do fun things and it just will totally shift you around. There's a
Yeah.
yoga class. I just started doing yoga again. I actually do weights a couple times a week and I play tennis and golf and all these things outside. But laughing yoga.
Mhm.
Your brain doesn't know the difference or your body doesn't know the difference between fake laugh and real laugh. And
Yeah.
so it still helps you, build all those great hormones and neurotransmitters regardless.
Yeah. I love that. The movement piece, anytime I'm like working with someone too, it's like find something that you actually like
That
because your
you
body
love. Yeah.
responds, and I do like lifting weights. I like the challenge of it. I like going in, but I do notice like over the last year, my back started hurting a little bit. So it forced me to like really take a step back and not like keep pushing through it because it's not comfortable at that point. So then I started going for longer walks or just like different things that still kept me in my body and moving,
Yeah.
but weren't as like intense. And I think that's really important, listening to your body. If you hate going to the gym or if you hate running, like don't do it.
Yeah. Why are you
Because
doing? I mean, there's so many, that's the thing. You've got to do movement that is really joyful.
mm-hmm.
That's why I like playing tennis. I never thought I'd play golf, but I just picked it up because
Yeah.
I don't have to push so hard. Tennis
Mm.
is kind of an adrenaline sport.
Yeah.
And golf is not. So I really, like that. I like to surf,
Mm.
do things that are, you get to sit a lot and the water
Yeah.
and look at the sea life, you know?
Yeah.
And so do things that, put you more in the present moment. That was, I
Mm-hmm.
think, the biggest gift that I received from balancing my hormones and healing was I could be in the present moment all the time. Like I can be here. I'm not thinking, what I have to do after this, or my to-do list or anything. I'm just right here, right now. So I can really enjoy this conversation. But there were, oh my gosh, decades where I couldn't. I was always on to the next thing before I was finished with the current thing. And
Yeah.
that's brutal.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
yeah, you had mentioned like the to-do list and the being busy and like one thing after another and with cortisol and everything. And I feel like that's why, having whether it's an extended meditation practice or even just like pausing right before we move on to the next thing, like is so helpful in just keeping you calm. Because I'm very much like have always been just I'm a single mom working, so
Yeah.
I'm just like
Yeah.
next like there's not enough time in the day to do what I want to do, right? And once I really implemented in my own life like everyday meditation, just like
Mm.
stuff stopped mattering as much. And I was
Yes.
like, I don't actually have to
Yes.
like do everything that I think that I have
Well,
to
you're
do.
you're building your stress resilience. So
Mm-hmm.
you're not as obsessed, first of all. So your serotonin is building. You don't have to, your brain isn't obsessing, and when things come at you, they roll off you. You don't
Mm-hmm.
take it in and your body gets all jangled again. You're like, oh yeah, whatever. And so that's a really huge practice that you brought in that is really shifting how your hormones communicate. Because if one hormone is out of balance, they're all out of balance. And
Yeah.
really, you just have to pay attention to two, cortisol and insulin. So get your fasting insulin checked, right?
Mm.
That's a
Yeah.
marker that most docs don't run anymore because insurance won't cover it unless there's some sort of diagnosis. But just insist, and hopefully you'll get it done. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
you can order your own labs, but just get it down below 5.4. And it's kind of crazy because things like plastics and BPA
Mm-hmm.
our BP in plastics can raise insulin resistance because it binds to your insulin receptors. So it's more than just a bad diet. And that's really important
Yeah.
to know. It's poor sleep, right? It's what you eat. But if you're insulin resistant, you're not burning the sugar in your bloodstream. You're storing it as fat. So you really have to reduce the sugar you eat until your cells become more insulin sensitive. So you can't push yourself a lot because you don't have that sugar. So just walking for 15 minutes after every meal will improve insulin sensitivity by like 50%.
Wow.
You need a good night's sleep, 8 hours of restorative sleep, unmedicated, by the way,
Mm.
will also really improve insulin sensitivity. That alone is a game changer. So just, know your number and just work on getting it down. Pay attention. Magnesium is fantastic
Mm.
for improving insulin sensitivity. It's, as good as metformin, so, replace those missing nutrients. Every single woman is really magnesium deficient, as I'm sure you've shared. So,
Yeah.
get your magnesium and it can change, how you experience your menstrual cycle.
Mm, I love that. Yeah. You actually touched on two things that I wanted to ask about. The first one was, yeah, what outside of like diet and like those kinds of changes can we make as far as, yeah, products? Like, cause I know, hair products, makeup products, things that
Mm.
we're spraying in the air. My daughter bought like dry shampoo the other day and she sprayed it on her arm. Like, this is like a week later, she still has like a burn. And I'm like, you should not be putting that on your head if it's doing that to your arm. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. So it's really cool. I'm so glad you brought this up because there are a couple of apps that you can put on your phone. And when you go to the store, you just scan the QR code and it'll tell
Mm.
you whether it's a safe product or not. So one is
Okay.
Yucca, and I think
Yucca.
it's YUKA. I don't know. I'm not sure.
I'll link it down
I,
below. You
I
can
do,
find
I
it.
do have it on my phone. And then the other one is part of the environmental working group. Yeah, it's Yucca, YUKA, and it looks like a
Okay.
carrot. It's that one right there.
Okay.
And then there's another one that the Environmental Working Group created, and I'm not sure what that one is called, but you can just go to the Environmental Working Group site, and
Okay.
they have a part of their site that's called Skin Deep,
Mm-hmm.
And let me just see if it's in here. Oh, yeah, it's called Healthy Living.
Healthy living.
It's
Okay.
that little green one with the swirls, Healthy
Okay.
Living. And those are two that you can have on your phone. And then you just scan the QR code and don't buy anything that isn't completely clean. I mean,
Yeah.
anything above two, a two rating, don't buy it
Mm.
because we're exposed to enough toxins already. And that's probably one of our main issues is that we're on toxin overload. And so we can't heal if we have so many toxins that our liver has to deal with. And it just totally
Yeah.
clogs up digestion and causes insulin resistance. And it's a mess. So,
Hmm.
we're exposed to enough toxins already without unconsciously adding them in at home. So, our household products and you know, women use a lot of skincare products and shampoos and conditioners and
Yeah.
things like that. And spray dry shampoo. And oh my goodness, on the tennis court, the ladies are spraying the sunscreen. I
Mm.
just like freak out. I just have to move
Oh,
away where the wind doesn't blow it in my face. I can't
yeah.
say anything, but it's really,
Yeah.
kind of taking me out that we put so much crap on our bodies. And then we expect to feel well. You're like, well, how do you
Yeah.
feel well when you're inundating your body with all these toxins? So be smart. I use two household cleaning products, Bona Me for scrubbing and white vinegar.
Mm.
Like that's it. That's all you
Yeah.
need. And then be
Yeah.
really smart about your laundry detergent. There's so many
Mhm.
great products out there.
Yeah, I just switched all mine up and I can't remember what the brand is. But if I remember it, I can put it in the show notes. But just
Yeah.
specifically for laundry detergent, because it was like, you get like, I mean, just the smell. One time, I think it was like maybe a few months ago, I got some bleach out and I was cleaning my bathroom and I swear like it like singed like inside of I smelt it for the entire day in my nose. I was like, this is why I don't use this. This cannot be good if this is like permeating my
Yeah. And
senses
when you
for
and
this
when you
long.
clean up everything, you become really sensitive to smells. I mean, I can smell
Yeah.
someone who's washed their clothes and Tide,
Mm,
or one of those scented laundry detergents that just kind of takes me out. I'm like, oh
yeah.
wow. I don't really have chemical sensitivities, but it really bothers me that smell because perfume is, one of the most toxic things that we can come into contact with. It's so
Yeah.
toxic. It's an endocrine disruptor. It's an obesogen. It makes us fat, right?
Mm,
It makes our metabolism sluggish. So all these toxins that are in all these body care products, face creams, all of it are obesogens.
yeah. Yeah. It's definitely good to know and to look into to be able to like make those switches like gradually.
Yeah.
The other question that I had for you, so we talk about or you mentioned, weight gain within a day and acne and like all these other symptoms that seem sometimes to be a symptom of just like PMS or like our menstrual cycle as women. How much of it actually is and like how much because I've noticed for myself the more I've cleaned up my body and what I'm doing and moving more, like I actually get very few symptoms around PMS, like hardly
So good.
any.
Yeah. And that's how it was for me when I learned how to better take care of myself. The only symptom I still got was I was just a little more tired.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's really important for us to pay attention to how we're feeling. Women have a 28-day cycle. Men
Mm-hmm.
have a 24-hour cycle. We're very different. Let's stop comparing ourselves to men, right? Testosterone, a higher level of testosterone just really makes a difference in how our bodies handle certain things. And kind of the first half of the month when the moon is, waxing, that's our energetic outward time. And when, in our luteal phase, the second half of the month, that's when we need to go more inward. We need to slow down a little bit, rest more, read a book, walk, stop pushing so hard. Give
Mm-hmm.
your body a chance to do its thing. There's a lot going on with hormones in that second phase. So
Yeah.
give your body a chance. I would say that that was the biggest thing is I expected to perform the same, every day, no matter what. And that's just not how a woman's body works.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned the moon too, because I'm just like huge on, astrology and I think that
Yes.
like cycle of it
Good.
and understanding where it's at because, just like the moon changes signs every couple of days, like our body does the same. Like we are in a
Yes.
way lunar beings, right? I think we always have been. And
We are
and
so connected. And it's really important to pay attention to the cycles, right?
Hmm.
Really important to pay attention to the cycles.
Yeah. So for the woman who's listening that maybe is experiencing a lot of these symptoms, because I know sometimes when it comes down to like, well, you have to change your diet and you have to do this, it can be overwhelming, right? And maybe they're not like super connected with their body, or they're just kind of getting in touch with that. What is like the biggest piece of advice, or like what is the biggest thing that you feel like you could leave them with, or for them to understand about their body and their hormones?
Well, I think that kind of our biggest enemy and our biggest issue is between our ears.
Mm,
I I never spoke fondly of my body. I never loved my body. I was always at odds with my body, maybe angry and disappointed and shameful and all of it. And so when we love something, the energy completely shifts. If you've seen The Secret, right, you know that.
mm,
Um, and so it's just one thought away, right? It's just one thought away. So probably the biggest gift that we can give ourselves is when a negative thought comes in, just turn it around to a positive thought. We don't have control over what comes in, but we do have control over how long it stays there. So shift it around and start saying, I love my body. I love my body. And then you're choosing yourself. And then the opportunities are going to come along. And when you say, I love my body, then you're going to start making choices that really support your body. And you're going to tune in more. Well, what is it that you need now? What do you need? How can I best support you? And it's a game changer. So thoughts become things.
mm.
So it's really hard to manage your thoughts when your brain chemistry is out of balance. It's one of the things we do in our private program is help to get your brain chemistry on board soon, so that you have the energy and motivation and the positivity to make change happen. But you have more control than you think, and you've got to start shifting those thoughts no matter how hard it is. And you can write down some affirmations that you can just read if your brain starts going OCD. And I love this way of looking at things. Whatever you're thinking, it's just weather, right? Don't take yourself
Mhm.
so seriously. It's going to pass.
Yeah.
And we take ourselves very seriously, and we need to start laughing. Are you kidding me? You just thought that? Like, seriously? And then shift it around to, I love you.
Yeah.
Holy crap, I love you. You're the best, right? And write down some affirmations that help to get you to where you want to go. I love my body, I have lots of energy, I'm happy with my life, whatever it is that you want for yourself, write that down as an affirmation. Louise Hay had, I think, fourth stage ovarian cancer, something like that.
Yeah.
And she didn't do any medical treatments. I'm not suggesting this, by the way, because I think she had magical powers that a lot of us don't have. But she completely reversed it, with her affirmations. And that was before,
Yeah.
she became such a big deal and, opened Hay House and all of that. So our thoughts become things. And my favorite bumper sticker is don't believe everything you think.
Yeah, right? That's such a huge shift. When I was studying integrative nutrition, one of the things they told us was like any diagnosis that you get, you can Google like spontaneous remission. It could be the worst thing. There's somebody out there that has healed it. And it's just that shift in your mindset from the possibility, right? It's like what was it, like the 4 minute mile, right? That nobody could do it until one person did. And then
Right.
you realize, oh, it's possible. And I think that shift in your mindset allows you to like get on board. Your body will like, you'll follow. And I think that, yeah, not believing everything that you think is a huge like shift in awareness of like, wow. And like you said, like you just like kind of have like some of the things that like, yeah, come to mind, you have to laugh because
You have
it's
to
like
laugh.
literally
Yeah,
what?
and you have to know that it's going to blow away, like it's
Yeah.
just weather. It's just weather. And same thing with everybody else, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody around you is grumpy, just know that it's just weather. It's not
Yeah.
about you, right? It's
Yeah.
not about you. It's just their weather. And
Yeah.
just remember, Those who mind don't matter. Those who matter don't mind. So
Mm.
start finding your peeps. Those who live the
Yeah.
longest and the healthiest are around people who just get them.
Mm. Beautiful. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This has been a fascinating conversation. How can people find you? How can they work with you? And is there anything that you're working on in 2026 that you want to share?
Yeah, so we have our foundational program for every woman. It's called Robin's Hormone Reset that we run in January and May. So whenever you're listening to this, we'd love to have you join us. It's really kind of what you need to know to be well naturally for every single woman. And then we have for your community, we have a complete hormone assessment. It's really a game changer. We actually have only offered that in Robin's Hormone Reset in the past, but we don't even know some of the symptoms that are going on in our bodies until we see it. And
Mm.
then we're like, oh, yeah, that's happening for me. And then you can see which hormone is affected. And we have a couple of hormones, highs and lows, like for estrogen and for what's the other one? Estrogen, we have highs and lows, and cortisol, we have highs and lows. So you'll be so surprised, and it'll take away the it's my fault. You
Mm.
know, it's just like, oh, well, this is just low cortisol, or this
Yeah.
is high estrogen, or, my progesterone's too low for how much estrogen I have. That's one thing we blame estrogen for so many of our problems, but we really need her. And what we're doing is we're taking progesterone out because progesterone goes to make cortisol if we're stressed, right? If we're too busy, 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 or if, we have too many toxins. So your progesterone gets too low, and then you have all the estrogen dominant symptoms. But estrogen actually, most often, is not too high. It's just that progesterone is too low. So the complete hormone assessment is very enlightening. And then you'll have an opportunity to do a hormone test with us if you'd like, or do the reset, depending on what time of year it is. And so it's just a great way to really get more familiar with the hormones and really better have a list of, what's going on with you. Because like
Mm.
me, I ignore so many of the symptoms. And then Instagram is Robin A. Nielsen, at Robin A. Nielsen, I believe. And we have a beautiful Facebook group, Natural, is it? I can't remember what it is. Natural Solutions Hormone Balance, something like that.
Yeah.
But you can find us just by
Yeah.
searching on it. Yeah, so a lot of ways to find us. And thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. And I'll have everything linked up. So anybody listening that wants to go grab that assessment, wants to follow you anywhere, just go click the link below and it'll take you right there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.